Manius Curius Dentatus, Consul 290-275 and 274 BCE, Censor 272 and 270 BCE. Manius Curius Dentatus earned his cognomen Dentatus, which means toothy, for being born with teeth, and is generally referred to by that name. Due to his varied accomplishments at home and in the field, he seems to have been the most prominent Roman in the later years of his life. He first became a hero of the plebeians in Rome when, as a tribune, he vetoed proposals by the sitting interrex to exclude plebeian nobles from running for the consulship at some unknown point in the 290s. In 290, he won his first consulship and managed to accomplish a great deal during his year in office. He won two major field battles, one against the Samnites and one against the Sabines, both of which were sufficiently large to earn him a triumph. One generally needed to slay 5,000 or more non-Roman opponents to earn the honor of a triumph, in case you were curious. He began a major public works project at home upon his return from the field. When one of Rome's consuls or praetors, it is unclear which, was killed in battle, Dentatus was sent to take his place in 283. In northern Italy, Dentatus drove the Gauls from their land and allowed the Romans to establish a colony at Senna. If his military reputation had not been cemented earlier, then he was certainly now regarded as one of Rome's premier generals. When it came time for the Romans to take on Pyrrhus of Epirus for the third time in 275 BCE, they elected Dentatus for a third term as consul and gave him command of the army. Dentatus faced Pyrrhus at the Battle of Beneventum that year. Though Pyrrhus is said to have won the battle, it was at best the most Pyrrhic of his three Pyrrhic victories against the Romans, though looking at the account of the battle it reads like a clear defeat for Pyrrhus. Dentatus encamped strongly on a hill with 17,000 infantry and 1,200 cavalry, his force suffering from the desertion of Rome's Italian allies. Pyrrhus, who had 20,000 infantry, 3,000 cavalry, and 20 war elephants, was opposed to him. Most of Pyrrhus's infantry were Italians, so the argument that this battle is a proof that the legion was inherently superior to the phalanx is misleading, since probably not more than 10,000 of Pyrrhus's men were Epirotes, and due to the poverty of Epirus, most of them were probably not fully equipped Macedonian-style phalangites. Seeing how strong Dentatus's camp was, Pyrrhus risked a risky night attack. This risk didn't pay off, as the Romans were aware of the approaching force, which did not all arrive on time and hence presumably struck piecemeal. Half of Pyrrhus's irreplaceable elephants were lost in the first night attack. As Polybius and other authorities record, Roman night camps were designed to prevent the possibility of attack and had such good discipline that one of them was never carried by an enemy force in the entire recorded history of Rome, even when they were attacked by other Roman forces in times of civil war. Thus, this is not as much an indictment of Pyrrhus's generalship as it may seem at first glance. While he should have been aware of how well prepared Roman camps were, to the best of my knowledge, he is the first foreign foe to test the mettle of a Roman camp. The next morning, the Romans under Dentatus marched out and offered battle to Pyrrhus. The Romans used fire arrows to drive his elephants back into his Epirote lines, routing his force. This makes the battle sound rather short, which was pretty typical of ancient battles. The estimated casualties are that 9,000 Romans and 11,000 Pyrrhic soldiers fell, but those numbers seem obscenely high to me, especially for the Romans who clearly won both phases of the battle. It is likely that despite the elephants being driven into the phalanx, that most of Pyrrhus's dead were his Greek-Italian allies, who he soon abandoned. I honestly don't know why Beneventum is considered to be a Pyrrhic victory, when even at the tactical level it was a clear-cut victory for the Romans under Dentatus. After the battle, Pyrrhus took his remaining 8,000 infantry and 500 cavalry, whom one presumes are Epirotes, back home, and abandoned the Greeks in Italy forever. In 272, the city of Tarentum surrendered to Rome. By the year 265, Rome had conquered the entirety of the Italian peninsula south of the Po River, and was ready to expand into Sicily and beyond. Though this had become virtually inevitable by 275, Dentatus's generalship no doubt expedited Roman conquest by at least a decade. Dentatus lived for another 5 years after the Battle of Beneventum, serving twice as censor, the highest elected office in Rome. Though he did not live to see its completion, he was the prime mover of the Annio Vetus, the city of Rome's second aqueduct, a project to which he devoted his shares of the spoils of war. In a tradition cited by many later Romans, including Cato the Elder, who was not above inventing an anecdote to prove a point, Dentatus went down as being an incorruptible official who was immune to bribery and free from avarice. Rome was lucky to have a statesman as civic-minded as Dentatus, and would but rarely experience such talented and dedicated leadership going forward.